Okay, so this is just a little video just to kind of walk you through the introduction in the first chapter to point out some important aspects of these sections. So we start out in the introduction just at this question, what is argument or what is it not? And so sometimes when you hear the word argument, you think of a fight of some sort. And sometimes arguments do get heated, but that's really not what we are talking about with argument. We are talking about academic argument. So we're not talking about a quarrel, like a little word fight between people. We are not talking about spin, which is putting your own opinion or your own bias on something. And then we're also not talking about propaganda, which is typically misinformation. But we are we're looking at formal arguments. So informal arguments are those little, disputes that you have. But formal, our concern is academic, okay? And so an academic argument for our purposes, a civil exchange in which a party takes a stand, presents evidence, includes documentation, and uses logic to convince an audience to accept or at least consider the writer's position. And then look at the little disclaimer that our text provides. An argument never actually proves anything. The best that an argument can do is to convince other people to accept or at least acknowledge the validity of its position. I think we are in a very interesting time right now in society where people are doing a lot of disputing, and it's pretty obvious, whenever we have like two basic sides in the country. I mean, there's obviously more factions than that, but two basic sides, and it doesn't really matter how much one side disputes or yells or whatever. Very rarely do you get the other side to accept your point. And so academically, we need to learn how to present evidence, this evidence that's indisputable, so that at the least someone can accept our point. And also, as an educated person, you need to kind of embrace this, that when presented with ample evidence that you are willing to see another side or somebody's point, okay? So the book talks about the rhetorical situation. So the word rhetoric, has like a bad connotation sometimes. We think, oh, he's just spinning rhetoric to amp up his base or whatever. Well, so there's reason for that, because rhetoric are the choices that someone makes, okay, to structure their message, to the decisions of the types of words, the types of tone, the timing that they use. So that is all part of rhetoric. But more importantly for us is the rhetorical situation. And so we are talking about the writer, the purpose, audience, the question, and the context. So we have to consider all of these issues when we are analyzing text and when we are writing text. One important piece of that we will discuss throughout are the appeals. And I know that most of you have heard about these already, having come from Comp 1. We're talking about logos, pathos, and ethos. So logos are those facts and examples that show reason. It's logical, okay? And this is the information that we get from the text. Pathos deals with the emotions. And these are languages and images and tones that will evoke emotions in the reader. Okay, so this deals with the reader. And then ethos is the authority or credibility of the author and the manner in which the article is written, in the manner in which the argument is made. So this deals with the author. So if you think about it that way, it's really easy to remember. We have text, reader, and author. You may be familiar with the rhetorical triangle. It's not true that this is a perfect triangle here, because a lot of times we will rely more on logos, or we should. So not everything is equally distributed in argument, but this just shows just how they work together, that having pieces of each work in a good argument. So you can read over this slide if you would like, the speaker, the audience, and the message. So the book presents the little the Grecian pillars here to show the elements of argument. So basically we have the thesis statement, we have evidence, we have refutation, and concluding statement. And it's showing in the book that, you know, that this argument cannot stand. It has to have this foundation. It has to have these pillars in place for the argument to hold. The thesis statement is obviously the subject and the writer's opinion on that subject. The evidence is how the writer is proving their position. And so evidence can, you know, you can have all kinds of different evidence within the essay, many points that support the argument. The refutation is important, and especially important in Comp 2, because you need to make sure that you acknowledge the opposing argument and refute it. That is a key piece of argument in this class. And finally, you will end with the concluding statement to drive your point home and leave the audience at least considering what you have to say. Okay, so I'm going to recommend, let me find the page, that you look over for sure the essay written by Nia Tuxen on pages 28 and 29. So there are many good sample papers, essays, articles within our book. This is a really good textbook. It is a really helpful textbook. So that I'm going to ask you to please take advantage of the good text you have for Comp 2. We can't say that always about all of our classes. We can say that about Comp 2. Look over this essay, Why Foreign Language Studies Should Be Required, and take note of how the organization is laid out. The publishers, you know, kind of identify that in the margins for you. But read through it, notice her organization, and notice that she is including all the pieces, all the elements of argument within this essay. Okay, I hope that this helps you a little bit as you get into studying the text. We will look at Chapter 2 next time. Thanks.